Hello there, friends. This is Spencer Michaud, and today we're going to be talking about the Sun moving into the second decan of Taurus. This will be a period of time between April the 29th up until May the 10th. So, this is something where we're going to be experiencing a conjunction with the Sun, with Uranus. We'll talk about that today. We're going to see an overcoming square from Saturn to the Sun as well as a last quarter moon phase during this period of time also. So we'll get to that. We'll talk a little bit about the Sun being on the fixed star Menkar. And of course, we will break down some tarot significance, the daimon and spirit of the decan, and do a little I-Ching reading to hopefully bring some peace of mind to you during these interesting times that we're experiencing. So let's take a look at it here. Hope that you're all hanging in there after the full moon in Scorpio. I will have to admit I've been having some challenging times lately. For those of you who haven't been following along on the channel lately, or if you're new here, I've been talking a lot about this decan in particular relating to steady rhythms, natural rhythms that we may have in our life, and trying to be productive through showing up day after day. And with Uranus here, with the Sun, and Uranus making contact with Mercury and Venus and all of those things, some of our daily routines have really been shaken up a little bit, I think. And that's been true for me. Especially, I have the moon in this decan of Taurus, and Saturn's really been bearing down on that moon along with Uranus. And my mom's been in and out of the hospital over the last couple weeks. She's had some challenges with she had an aneurysm a few years ago and has been having complications on and off from that for the last few years. And she went through a pretty serious health scare over the last week, but has kind of started to come out of it, thank goodness. And hopefully she's on her path to recovery. So I just did want to reach out and say thank you to everyone who's been sending well wishes for that. And hopefully we've turned a corner here. But when you're going through emotional things like that, and it does make it difficult to kind of do your everyday types of things. So I'm curious if any of you have had some kind of disruption to your routines, especially with something coming to a head at this full moon that we experienced in Scorpio. Because I think it's going around. I've been talking to some friends of mine, and they've had some challenging emotional things come up. And I hope that we're getting over the hump here, though, and that we're able to maybe start beginning the journey back to some types of normalcy in our life. I guess I'm not even sure what that means anymore. Normalcy is a strange word to me, and we've been tossing it around in interesting ways as far as the pandemic goes and the new normal and all of these types of things. But it is nice to have certain routines and rhythms that we experience. And I think that the Sun moving through Taurus too is shining a light on what types of rhythms will bring fertility, what types of challenges we might have to our potentially outworn routines and rhythms. I think this is something that Uranus is doing in this period of time, is shaking us up out of our normal routines. And then Saturn being a part of the equation is, really bringing some sobriety. I guess this is something I talked about with Venus and Saturn being in a square in my last video. Saturn's really bearing down on both of those planets and all those planets in Taurus, and really saying, hey, there's some limitations that you have to work within, and there may be some crystallized things where you may feel like there is some things that are out of your control that may be making it difficult to do things the way that you've normally always done them. And again, like we are experiencing some things where the collective good and the actions that we have to take to contribute to the collective good, maybe it may feel like they're interfering with our personal pursuit of pleasure, our personal pursuits with growth and things of that nature. So again, I think those are kind of the main themes that I can pick out of this transit that we're experiencing here. And I guess the thing that I will say is that, you know, this is a decan and a sign in general, Taurus, that does not always have to look, um, it doesn't always have to be pretty, you know, like some of the times when you're planting the seeds in your garden, your hands get dirty. You know, you may get blisters on your fingers, you may be exhausted from all the hard work, but it's a preparatory phase that helps you to create a later flowering and a later abundance. And I think that considering that Aphrodite in Greek mythology was married to the blacksmith Hephaestus, who was, you know, was not the most attractive of the Olympian gods. In fact, he was the least attractive, but he was one of the most skilled and one of the most hardworking, and he created beautiful things, even though he himself was very simple and plain. And I think that that's one of the things to really think about with Taurus as well, is how can we kind of strip things down to their essence and live in simplicity, do the hard, dirty work that we need to do to be able to create the abundance of summer that we hope for, you know, to be able to bring things into fruition. This is seed planting time. This is preparing our fields. This is trying to find the right moment to plant those seeds. I mean, as a gardener, you know, especially in a place like Michigan. Michigan is it's just batshit crazy when it comes to weather. We have 30-degree swings of weather from one day to the next. I believe recently we had a 40-degree day, and then it was like 80 degrees yesterday. So it's a little insane. But one of the things that you have to think about when you're gardening in an environment like this is at any time you could have a frost or something like that, a late season frost, and you have to know when that right moment is to be able to put the little seedlings that you may have been starting indoors outside, and when it's safe to do so, and when it's safe to put them in the ground. I mean, there have been rules around here about, you know, it's safe after Mother's Day for frost warnings, but even then, it sometimes can be a little shifty where I live. But again, it's finding that right moment to plant the little seedling into the ground or the seed itself, and then the care necessary to bring it to full term. So again, the daimon associated with this decan were the Horai, which were goddesses of the seasons, and they were very much revered by farmers because they were helping to bring about consistency, fertility, abundance. It was helping to do the steady hard work that was necessary to be able to create that sense of growth. All right, so let's just take a look at the what we've got going on here from a planetary perspective. So you can see here, as I'm recording this on Thursday, the 29th, we're heading right into the sun making a conjunction with Uranus. Okay, so we've got the sun co-present with Uranus, with its host, Venus, and then with Mercury. Mercury during this period of time is also going to be making its evening rise around the 3rd of May. So this is another important moment where we're going to be having an awareness of what needs to be done to deal with our resources. This is really going to be a moment that is speaking very loud. The weekend of the 2nd and 3rd is going to be a really important one as we are moving into that coming through Sunday and Monday of this week here. So yeah, we're going to be getting shakeups with Uranus. Normal routines may get thrown off a little bit. I guess full disclosure, another thing that may be throwing my routine off a little bit, and I've been struggling with some lethargy lately. I've just been, you know, really drained emotionally and burnt out, and I've really just kind of wanted to take a break from putting my mug on camera and finding interesting things to say, like this, because I do take this very seriously, and I want to be very helpful. And sometimes when your tank is just super low, it's hard to be a source of strength for others, you know, and sometimes you have to give that to yourself. That could also be something we're doing with Taurus season. And one of the things I've been really looking forward to this week that is a really nice just distraction for someone with a very analytical Virgo brain, is what I like to call football Christmas. It's the NFL draft this week, and I don't know. I know people in the spiritual community have mixed feelings about sports and football in particular, but it's something that from my childhood um, I've always appreciated. It was a sport that, coming from a family that was, you know, spent most of their weekends in Wisconsin. The Green Bay Packers were a team that has sort of a religious following. It's not just a sports team there. It's really it's almost like a cult-like following. And I just had a lot of really good memories of spending time with my family and, unifying around uh, the sport. And I look at it as a dance, a ballet. Um, I see a lot of beauty in the aspirational nature of some of the athletes themselves that are trying to take their bodies to the very limits and to try to maximize their potential. The draft to me is a special moment because it is the fulfillment of many of these young men's hopes and dreams that they've been dreaming about this moment for their entire life, and to see them fulfill a childhood dream is really inspiring to me. Um, I totally understand that the professional sports itself have some problematic drawbacks that I'm completely aware of, with, especially the NFL, with some safety concerns, and with, just any person that is making millions and millions of dollars while others are suffering is difficult too. Um, but I think that what I connect with it is that sense of hope. And again, the analytical part of it to me, being able to project into the future, like astrology, it's a similar skill. It's being able to take a look at a data set, and to um, look at film, look at numbers, look at athletic testing, and be able to project how that will turn out in the future is extraordinarily satisfying to me, and the way that I think about things in general. Again, for an analytical person, it's a dream come true. So I've been distracted by what I call football Christmas this week. But again, it's a nice little distraction from some of the difficult things that I've been going through in my life, and a connection to maybe some of my the joy that I had as a child doing things. I used to collect sports cards as a kid, and was really involved in athletics. I was a hockey player and a baseball player. I also played soccer. I did a lot of different sports growing up, and I used to be the kid that would take you know, this is like a little burgeoning like accountant stock market kid, but I would go buy baseball cards, and I had a subscription to this magazine called Beckett Magazine. And it was basically like the Wall Street Journal for sports cards, where they would show you whether a card was trending upwards or downwards, and you could, you'd be like, oh, I have this valuable thing. And I always just really enjoyed that aspect of things. I think in a different life, I may have made a decent economist or something like that. Um, Although I will say that the way that my value system has been trending, I've been, you know, really embracing, I think, a lot more, and being attracted to a lot more, to more of a, I don't know, social democracy type of experience, where we're really trying to make sure that everybody has enough, rather than have it be this game that maybe is rigged, a rigged system. So, but as a kid, I didn't really understand all of that. So, again, when we come to awareness as an adult, that can shift our perspectives on things and whatnot. But anyway, so that's a long-winded answer of saying that there may be something going on in your life that could be disrupting your everyday routine, a distraction of some sort, a realization, a breakthrough with your resources, and things of that nature. So this is what I'm looking at with all of the planets on in Taurus. And I would be remiss if I wasn't to point out that we have this overcoming square from Saturn and Jupiter, from Aquarius. So even though we might want to take pleasure and figure out what's going on with our resources, Saturn's really asking us to sober up with that, and to work within certain limitations. Another thing I've been doing this week that has been interfering with some of my desire to put videos out and things like that is I had to do my taxes this week, and that seems like a very Saturnian kind of thing where you're having to do something that you don't really want to do, and you may feel a little bit of worry about the future and things like that, and where your money's going and all of these things. And yeah, tax season isn't really fun, and it's a weird one this year with COVID and things like that. So um, I wish you luck if you're going through that process yourself. So that could be another thing we're looking at. We do have a sextile with Mars and the Taurus planets. Mars isn't in the best shape right now, moving through its fall in Cancer. And we have a waning moon cycle throughout this decan of Taurus here with the moon in Taurus II. I'm sorry, the sun in Taurus II. So we're going to be going through the phase of the solar lunar cycle where we're letting go of things, where we may have a change of heart about something, especially when we get to the last quarter moon. We may really run into an existential crisis that may come up at the last quarter moon as well. These are themes that come up when we are making a shift from the waxing phase where we're gaining in light to releasing that light. As I'm recording this now, we're kind of moving through the disseminating phase where whatever we learned in this last buildup to the full moon, we're able to kind of start digesting it and sharing our wisdom with others. This is sort of what I think, doing today, is sharing what I've learned from this last cycle, which was, like I said, was a little bit of a difficult one, especially with something with the moon coming to fullness in its fall in Scorpio. So just to recap that full moon, we had the full moon at 7 degrees of Scorpio in a mutual reception with Mars in its fall. So this was something where we were dealing with difficult circumstances, but through them exchanging resources, we may have been able to find a little bit of a silver lining. Again, my mom's been in and out of the hospital. She was having some seizures and had some difficulty with like some stuff in her blood work and things like that. And some of it might have been through some of the habits that have been coming up with her, and the difficulty with a lack of mobility and things like that from being a little bit disabled from her challenges. And maybe silver lining with this is finding some new habits, maybe shifting habits towards some healthier ones. Maybe understanding that there may have been some things going on underneath the surface that had been neglected for a period of time that need to be changed. I think that leaving bad habits behind is a theme of this full moon. I'm curious if you have if that has come up for you, if there's been some things you've been trying to leave behind at this lunar cycle as well. So yeah, our faith was tested a little bit with this too. I think that this was another experience where we may have wanted to take action, but we may have not been in the position to do so, and we had to learn a little bit of faith and acceptance as well. Again, when we're experiencing hardship, a lot of the times we want to alleviate that pain right away, and it's never easy. And again, it's much harder when it is a situation that is once removed from our own situation. So it's one thing to be able to release a habit of your own, or to deal with something corrupt in your own personal situation. It's much more difficult to deal with that if it's a family member, if it's a situation with your work or with your community or your society or something like that. There is times where we might not be able um, to deal with it directly, and that's again where we have to learn what we can and cannot do, and accept some of the things we can change, and have faith to gain assistance with what we can't change. It's that little serenity prayer, right? All right, so that's kind of what we're looking at with the planets here. So whole sign sextiles with Mars and Neptune with the sun over this period of time. Whole sign squares with Saturn and Jupiter. Jupiter is trying to help us to move forward and move forward from the past, and leave the past and embrace the unknown. So taking a leap of faith is important right now. And Jupiter is going to be moving into Pisces very shortly. Within the next few weeks here, the beginning of May, we're going to see Jupiter briefly ingress into Pisces. And then it'll slow down and move retrograde in the summer and back into Aquarius. But we are going to get a taste of Jupiter returning back to its nocturnal domicile, which I'm looking forward to. I think that'll bring some positive things. I guess I would say that when that happens, um, understand that it's a preview, and some of the things we've been dealing with now, we probably are going to have to deal with again, with Saturn turning retrograde in the middle of the month, and then Jupiter, retrograding back into Aquarius towards the middle of the summer. All right, so let's take a look at some of the transits here. Now, what we are experiencing with the moon, well, I keep saying the moon. I really want the moon to be a player in this. But our first real thing that we're going to be looking at is the Sun and Uranus. And again, the tarot card for this decan is the Six of Pentacles. And you can see a figure in a red cloak holding a scale of justice, that is giving alms to the poor. And those are potentially the two figures we saw in the Five of Pentacles that had fallen on hard times. So this may be an experience where we are either creating vitality, like the sun might, through our generosity, through sharing with others, through sustaining productive rhythms. Benabel Wen, has a really nice quote in her book, Holistic Tarot, regarding this card, where she says, "My charity to others returns riches to me sixfold. Abundance is my birthright." So I can tell you, I've said this a number of times, but I have the moon here in this at 15 degrees of Taurus. And every time I've let go of my grip on material reality and just focused on what I could give, and focused on the generosity aspects, it really has come back to me in interesting ways. And especially when I released expectation of how that energy and how those resources were going to be returned to me. And I highly recommend taking that tact with the sun here. And the sun is going to provide awareness of where we may be able to give, the resources that we have both at our disposal to create more, to generate more material things, whether it's things that we can then offer to our community, or whether it's things that support us or sustain us. But again, it's a focal point with the sun. It's an awareness. It's a way to create vitality. It's a way to administrate our lives and take authority. I think that the sun had to do with like kingship in the past, and governing things in our life. So we can govern in a way where maybe it's time for us to think about what we can provide for our community. I've said this in videos past, but when we have a strong group, when we have a strong and healthy society, it can provide much better for us as individuals. And I think that's something that I've really had to take into account. When we have this overly competitive dog eat dog type of experience, we only can create abundance for a very small fraction of the society, and then everyone else suffers, and everyone thinks that they're going to be the ones that are going to win and to come on top. But when a system is disproportionately rigged in favor of some and oppressive of others, it's, even if you work twice as hard, it may be difficult to receive the same benefit from it. So again, it's an encouragement to try to create a healthy balance in your community, and think about how you can generate wealth and prosperity, not only for yourself, but for the people that you care about, for your neighbors, for your city, for your state, for your country, for whatever. Because again, talk about taxes. If it's tax season, those taxes, ideally, should be used to help people. They ideally should be used to provide for those that can't, maybe through an injury or an illness or other circumstances beyond their control. Um, it should be used for things like infrastructure, that like roads that we share, through taking care of our water systems and things of that nature, to help provide, farmers with subsidies to be able to provide the food that we eat. All of those things. Um, we really are not islands, and I think that that's a something that's difficult sometimes. And this is part of the Saturn and Aquarius um, shift that's happening, is really becoming aware that we may have become isolated, not just through like COVID or the pandemic, but through other ways of thinking, that we are, only that our actions are only affecting ourselves. And things like climate change and the forest fires and the West Coast and all of those things have shown us that our actions do affect others, and that we need to take that into account when we're dealing with our choices. So let's look at the chart again. So really, the sun conjoining Uranus here is shaking all those things up. Uranus was that Promethean influence, and Prometheus was the Titan that stole fire from Zeus and was able to give it to humanity hidden in a fennel stalk, and allow them to be able to provide for themselves and not be so dependent on the gods for everything that they needed. And he was punished for that, though. There was a punishment where Zeus was not happy with this and chained him to a rock and had his liver eaten by an eagle or a vulture every day, and it would regenerate every night. So there was suffering that happened through this. So there may be something that we're trying to bring into fruition that, it may come through struggle, it may come through secrecy. I don't know. It's like this lightning bolt, though, where it's shaking us up. It is shaking us up on an idealized level, though. Robert Schmidt has a really good lecture where he talks about the outer planets, and he talks about Uranus as a transcendental sun, a solar awareness, a point of consciousness that is about the collective much more than the individual. So this may be where our idealism is leading to a shakeup, to trying to bring something new into being. And if you look at the story of Prometheus, he was extraordinarily idealistic. He was saying, "Hey, this isn't fair. I mean, you should take care of this creation that you made as a god. Like this should." He had a love for humanity, and that's what caused him to do what he did. It caused him to rebel. This is another one of the things we talk about with Uranus, is rebellion. So there may be something in your life that you have to rebel against, the established rhythms, the established patterns, the established habits that you may have had in your life, um, that will help to shake up the way that you deal with providing for yourself and others. And there may be some suffering involved with that, but it's part of the myth itself. Um, Prometheus did it anyway; he had to do it. So there may be something in your life that you just have to do to really get yourself out of this rut. I think that as communities, we're trying to get out of really ingrained, established patterns, because we're like, oh well, that's the way it's always been. And human beings are really resistant to change, and sometimes it takes a really intense event to get us to change. Because for a lot of people, they're like, well, I'm doing okay, this may not be great, but until the pain becomes so acute that you just can't bear it anymore, a lot of people are willing to just keep on going with a less than ideal situation. But I think that we may be discovering that there's just a tipping point here where we have to kind of really leave the past behind, and we will gain honor for doing so. Jupiter, that's what Jupiter says right now, is that there is honor in leaving the past behind. There is merit in making a transition into a new reality. And hopefully you're able to do that in your life as well. So another way this could manifest is seeking freedom from doing the things the same way that you've always done, right? You could also potentially experience an unexpected source of support, an unexpected charitable impulse to either be charitable or to receive charity from some organization or individual or something of that nature. I think it could go both ways. Some like shocking event where some like I don't know, you finally get a great benefactor like supporting you, or you're just like, you know what, I'm inspired to support this cause. And I, really didn't realize it in the past, but there's a lot of value in this, and I want to be the one that is providing that Promethean support. So, like I said, it could go both ways. All right. So if we move forward to the May the 3rd, so on the 2nd, just before that happens, Mercury here at 28 degrees of Taurus is going to be making what's called the heliacal rising. Check that. Not the heliacal rising. It's going to be making its evening rise. There's a difference. With the inferior planets, Mercury and Venus, there are two types of emerging from the beams. One is a heliacal rising when it is retrograde in motion, okay? And one is the evening rise when it is direct. So this is a direct Mercury that is going to be visible in the western sky, the evening sky after the sun sets, when it is outside of a 15-degree arc of separation from the sun. So this is where Mercury is finally getting outside of that 15-degree under the beams, getting burnt up by the sun. This is really important because even though like a planet like Venus right now is in its chariot, which means it's protected from the beams, and we have a functional Venus, Mercury has been really getting hit hard by the sun. It's been burnt up. There's been a lot of difficulty with commerce. There's been difficulty with communications. Things just don't work as well with a planet like Mercury under the beams when it's not protected by the chariot. So this is a moment where Mercury escapes those harmful rays and makes an announcement of some sort. This was a condition of phasis, an omen that speaks. This is Hermes returning potentially from Olympus and saying, okay, I've got this mandate from Olympus, from the gods. Here's what needs to happen. And there is an exchange again that happens. So really keep your eyes out for that, because that's really a big part of what's going on during this decanic cycle is the evening rise, the evening star phase, the beginning of the evening star phase of Mercury. Okay, Mercury's moving really fast right now. I'm trying to put decan things on. I can't keep up with it. I believe Mercury's been changing decans every 4 or 5 days, which is crazy. That's really fast for a planet to be moving. But as we move forward from the 2nd to the 3rd, we are in conjunction with this heliacal rising, which probably is going to be some news that comes to light in the Taurus area of our chart. And really, it's coming to light in the 3rd decan of Taurus, which is probably having to do with, 3rd decan of Taurus, and I'll make a video on this in the next few days with Venus moving into this area of the zodiac, but 3rd decan of Taurus is really about taking care of anything that could threaten the fields that we've just planted. It's like the maintenance mode of protecting our vulnerable new plantings from like insects, pests, disease. It's then having faith in the process. Sometimes it's getting rid of bad habits and repenting for misdeeds that we may have done in the past. It's the power of prayer to overcome some of the challenges that we experience. So that we could be feeling a feeling of repentance. We could be feeling something where we're saying, okay, we understand now what was creating challenges in our life and what bad habits we had. Remember, the Liti was the daimon associated with Taurus III. The Liti were the old hobbled women that followed after Eight, who was translated roughly to ruin. So by our rashness, by our impatience, we may be creating some challenges for ourselves in our lives. And the Liti are kind of cleaning up the mess afterwards and saying, okay, repent for those sins. It's time for you to have faith in the process and to offer up prayers to be able to overcome some of those hasty actions. So this is where we're probably, those things are going to be on our mind with this heliacal rising of Mercury. Okay, finding new systems and letting go of the past, and really figuring out how we can eliminate anything that would threaten what we're trying to bring into fruition. And here's another interesting thing. Right as Mercury is making that heliacal rising, it's making a square to Jupiter, and Jupiter's in the overcoming position. This is actually a positive thing. I know that squares, we tend to be like, oh no, squares. But when it's a benefic in the overcoming position to another planet, generally that was seen to be a very, very positive thing for the planet that the benefic was making contact with. So again, by leaving those bad habits behind, by transitioning into a new experience, you're going to be able to bring honor and merit into your life, which is one of the significations of Jupiter, and abundance, bringing abundance into your life through elimination of some of those challenging things that you may have been, unconsciously, pursuing. Okay. All right. So now we're looking at the 3rd of May, Monday. Maybe over the weekend, we're getting rid of those bad habits. Mercury will have ingressed into Gemini, its home. So really, Mercury is both going to improve its position or its condition by making that evening rise and by moving into its own domicile. So Mercury is going to be all systems go in the next few days here. So get ready for a lot of messages and communications that may have been held up in the past, and some flow returning with that. Now, the challenge is, there is a challenge with this though, because on the 3rd, the sun's going to be making a square to Saturn, and Saturn's in the overcoming position. So the other thing that's happening is it's supercharged. This aspect is supercharged by the moon conjoining Saturn at exactly the same degree, at 13 degrees of Aquarius. That's our last quarter moon phase that we're talking about, where there's some kind of conflict that is coming up that we have to try to resolve. Oppositions are ones where we have to hold duality. Squares are of the nature of Mars. We have to kind of, resolve a conflict with squares. There may be something where, this is the friction that causes us to make a change. Not necessarily always the case with oppositions, which are of the nature of Saturn, where we may be denied something. We have kind of a no that happens with an opposition. But with the Mars type square, we've got to either have courage to take an action, we've got to make a separation from something and cut something out of our life, or we have to fight for something, right? And in this case, Saturn is going to be putting some limitations on what we're doing. So the combination of the last quarter moon, which is a bit of an existential crisis, Mercury making its evening rise, there may be a feeling of feeling a little bit blocked, of having to sober up. There may be some confusion over and some clarity. There may be some confusion over our clarity about our role in certain situations, perhaps related to identity as well. Difficulty working consistently within the system. I've been feeling that with doing my taxes and things like that, and figuring out my role in the astrological community, and my role as far as how I'm going to support myself and my value system, and kind of the friction that I feel with what I hope is the purity of my intentions, but also the reality of how the game works right now, or the system works. I have a very idealistic way of thinking about how we should exchange resources right now, and I'm running sort of into a little bit of the brick wall of I don't know, a reality check, with feeling I may have to make some compromises down the road as far as what I'm going to need to do to support myself. But again, that's part of Saturn's role. It tells you, it strips away idealism. It is the opposite of the sun. It's not necessarily about hope. It's about reality. So there could be a conflict between our hopes and a reality check with Saturn and the Sun being in a square. Um, the news that we are getting from Mercury could also bring us a passing depression, and we really need to return to faith with this. I know that for me, I've been struggling a little bit with feeling a little bit depressed over the last week with the full moon and dealing with the emotional fallout of like having a family member being sick and emotional roller coaster of that. I think a lot of the times when we try to stay strong and not try to completely have a emotional breakdown about something, we can feel it later. This has been true for me. I often have a delayed emotional response to things where I try to be strong for people in the moment of a crisis. And then a few days after the crisis is sort of dissipated, I just feel completely drained and completely like, man, just wrung out. And that's what I've been going through the last few days. I'm curious if you feel this way too. I know I think I have some friends that probably deal with things in a similar way. Is in that crisis moment, you're like, this isn't the time for me to melt down. Like somebody needs me, and and then once the immediate threat has subsided, you're like, oh boy, I just am going to collapse on the floor, because that was a lot of energy just to keep that center together. And especially when you over and over again feel responsible for having to be that emotional center for people. And I think this may be a Cancerian trait in general, or maybe even the Taurus moon thing. I don't know. Let me know if you experience this too. Um, but I think that being in a role of being an astrologer too, we get cast into this role of being the emotional center for people as well. This is, and I think rightfully so in some ways. I think that's something that I think a lot of us try to cultivate. We're not perfect at it. We're flawed human beings just like everyone else. But I think there's a reason why we study this. It's not, there's a lot of people out there who are using astrology to really better themselves and to really be able to almost detach from the wheel of fortune to the point where we can see these cycles as temporary, and we can connect to spirit. And we are trying to study the myth and the stories and the spirituality around it to be able to be a guiding light for people. And but again, as human beings, we're subject to the twists and turns of these planetary influences as much as we may try to detach from them. This is something I really learned from my teacher Achuttabhava. Was he really has a commitment to I think almost try to detach from the planets. Like he has described them like the Vedic tradition would as grabbers or grahas, and he has a lot of things about detaching from some of their influence and reconnecting with the center of the wheel, which I agree with. But it's difficult to do. It takes practice, I think, is the thing, and we're all going to fall short of that glory sometimes. And I think that a lot of the astrological community sometimes will, I think, attempt to gloss over the fact that we're flawed human beings and maybe even try to present us something as better, more than what we are. And I think that can be real dangerous. And it's dangerous not only for us as a community, but for that individual. Do you know what I'm saying? Because if you're constantly trying to uphold this illusion of centeredness and togetherness, um, it can be a real stressor. And at some point, you just melt down. And I'm not talking about Achuta. I think Achuta is actually very honest about when he's not feeling up to snuff. But I think that there may be some others in the community that aren't really. I don't know. They have more difficulty with that vulnerability. And I guess if there's other people in the astrological community, my plea to you would be, it's okay to be a real person. It's okay to be a flawed person. It's okay to realize that we're all going through these things together, and we don't have to have this polished presentation all the time. And it's okay to take a break too. That's what I realized over the last week is sometimes it's okay not to have to be in front of this camera all the time trying to pretend like we have it all together. So I think that's what we're going to be feeling on the 3rd of May with that square with Saturn and the last quarter moon and the evening rise. This also is coinciding a little bit with I keep wanting to say the moon. I don't know, the moon's on my mind. I got my money on my moon and my moon on my mind. So the sun is going to be conjoining Menkar around that period of time. And Menkar is in a constellation called Cetus, which was the whale. It was in the mouth of the whale. And this could be where we're feeling a little bit victimized by the flow of life events or hidden forces, being cast about by that wheel of fortune that I was talking about. I think that, even though we're in the mouth, it could feel like we're being swallowed up and we're in the belly of the whale, swallowed up by fate, things that are just bigger than us, that are out of our control. And, in my research on this fixed star, there's a couple of different ways people were looking at it. A lot of them did not really think this was a very fortunate fixed star. So this could be like being swallowed up by some negative circumstances. Liz Hazel talked a little bit about maybe some unexpected good fortune. So there was at least one author that thought that there could be some, unexpected good things that come our way. So I'll leave that to you to tell me what kind of experience you have with that. All right. So the last thing we'll do here to wrap it up here is we will talk about the I-Ching. And thank you for hanging with me today. Thank you for all of your support. Remember, if you are enjoying these videos, the easiest thing you can do to support me is to hit that like button. Make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. We just passed 600 recently, which is very, very cool. I love this community that we have here, and I'm really looking forward to expanding that and to get into that kind of, it's like a little bit of a milestone for YouTube to be in the 1,000 subscriber range, because you can open up some things that will help support creators around that period of time. So if you're not subscribed to this channel and you're enjoying this content, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to make a donation to what I'm doing here, if you want to make a material donation, you can support me at buymeacoffee.com. I also have a Venmo account and a PayPal Me direct link if you prefer that. I always appreciate your charitable donations. And hopefully I am providing value for you here. That is my goal. And trying to keep it accessible to the most amount of people possible through the way that I'm doing it here. All right, so we have a number of changing lines in this hexagram. We've got number 1. This is the hexagram number 22. All right, so we are looking at line number 1. I believe line number 3. I'm going to check my program here because I did not write these down properly. Yeah, line number 3 and then the top line. Okay, so these are our changing lines. Again, changing lines talk about a situation that's in flux. We have an initial hexagram, 22, that is called beauty, adornment, grace, ornamentation, simplicity, inner beauty, persuasion. This is an interesting one because this is really reflects, I think, Venus and her role in Taurus. She is the nocturnal domicile lord of the. This is her nocturnal domicile, is what I'm meaning to say. And there are stories of Aphrodite and how she emerged from sea foam and from the sea, naked and glowing like this. She was called Phosphorus, the poetic name in ancient Greek. So she was glowing with that inner essence. And this hexagram really talks about that inner beauty. Some of the questions that Hilary Barrett asked, she says, how can you make the essence, the inner beauty, right, visible to others? What do you choose to communicate? That's really, I think that's an interesting question as we see Mercury making that evening rise. What are you going to put out there? What kind of essence can you glow with? So this is about outer beauty emerging from the inner self. This is about, Aphrodite glowing like that phosphorescent jellyfish. And she was adorned by the Graces when she emerged from the ocean. So all she had to do was just be herself, glow from her inner essence, and that was able to create uh, outer value. So you valuing yourself is going to be really important to be able to create the abundance in your external life. So being proactive about simplifying your life too. Some of the changing lines in this hexagram talk about how we create beauty in the world. How we are we just putting on a brave face? Are we trying to adorn our external image, or are we getting in touch with our authenticity and our sincerity? And this was some of the things I was talking about earlier in the podcast. This is you don't really have to put on this mask for people. I think one of the things that I've found success with is just trying to be as authentically myself as I possibly can, warts and all. Um, and yeah, it is for a Leo ascendant, for anybody who has like some pride issues or lots of I don't know, is easily embarrassed. It can be difficult to show your face when you're not feeling at your best. Marilyn Monroe was a Leo ascendant who was notorious for, I think, disappearing when she didn't feel at her best, right? But I think that it just humanizes you a little bit, and this is really an important thing to remember with this hexagram number 22. So these changing lines. Line number 1 at the bottom says, "He adorns his feet. He discards the carriage and walks." So this is about refusing to take the easy way out, practicing self-reliance, having a beginner's mind, releasing all the pretense. Okay, just saying, you know what, this is who I am. I'm going to glow from this essence. I'm willing to like maybe not be the expert right away. I'm willing to go through the process and just support myself through my own value system. Okay, through just like saying, okay, I'm committed to my integrity and to being a whole person, whether it is uh, beautiful or not. Sometimes, again, like Hephaestus, the process of becoming can be messy. The blacksmith's, his anvil in his workshop and his workspace is dirty. To create those beautiful works of art, we've got to, get our hands dirty every once in a while. So I think that this is about getting rid of all that stuff that says, oh, we have to put on this brave face all the time. We have to have these appearances, this perfect Instagram life. This. I think that one of the things you have to realize, especially when we're doing something important or we're doing something that we eventually people have respect for, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes to that you're only getting a brief tip of the iceberg glimpse of when you see it come out on the internet or on these videos. Like, for example, I do hours of research for every single one of these videos, and you get to see the hour that we engage with here. But and there was, it's not just the research I do just for the video, it's the research I've been doing for years and years and years. And it's the wrestling with yourself, where you're like, saying, I don't want to do this today, and whining to your family and things like that. And you're like, I don't want to go on the video. But then sucking it up and showing up again and again and again and again. And that type of consistency is what is going to create success over time, which is what the name of this decan is success, material success. Okay, and it's through consistency. All right, so line number 3, the next line says, adorned and glistening, continual perseverance brings good fortune. So this is what I was talking about. Again, this could be a time when things may be going well. It was talking about things going so well that you potentially get lazy. So this is about sustaining effort and devotion, even if things are coming easier to you. All right. Don't fall into just pursuing the pleasure and eating snacks and lying on the couch. I did that for the last 3 or 4 days, and I'm probably going to do a little bit of that with the NFL draft, but then I'm going to have to get back to work. So it's kind of like take a break when you need to rest, recover when you need to, but then don't get stuck in it. It's really easy to get stuck in that, in a bad habit. So this is why I keep doing this, because I just like, if I stop, it'll be really hard for me to get started again. This is the inertia present with Taurus. Remember, it's the sign of the bull. It's the temple of the bull with that 1,000-pound animal. So I would encourage you, keep, even just showing up for little efforts can help you to overcome the impulse of falling into the inertia of a bad habit. Okay, so again, just even if you can just maintain a little bit of consistency, that can go a long way. Line number 6 says, adorned in white, no blame. So this is, again, referring back to discarding pretenses, releasing the need to impress people. Just be yourself. It's okay for you just to be you. You're lovable just the way that you are. So ornamentation is unnecessary. That's what this adorned in white means. Your sincerity is going to shine through like Aphrodite. You just have to shine like her, shine like Venus, shine like the Venus that is emerging from the ocean in that beautiful clamshell, right? And you will be graced with the good things in life if you're, shining from your true self. If you're engaging in creative, generative activities, it will come back to you sixfold. If you're coming from an intention to create and to contribute, that's the key. Just release that pretense that you deserve to be adorned. You don't have to ask for it. This is the key with Venus when she's in Taurus, is she doesn't have to ask for any of this stuff. She just is. She's worthy of it just for being herself. So the less you can force an issue, the less striving that's another word that comes up in the I-Ching, is they really encourage aligning with the Tao and the natural forces of rhythm rather than striving for things. It doesn't mean we don't do things. It just means that we understand what is necessary in that moment. And this really leads us, these 3 lines, leads us to the hexagram that we're looking at, number 2, which is basically 3 open lines on top of 3 more open lines. It's utter receptiveness, acceptance, acquiescence, adjustment, nurturing, docility. Be docile like a cow, like a bull. Enjoy grazing in the fields. All right. It's called Earth. And Hillary Barrett asks, how are you being guided? How can you lend your strength? So this is about practicing acceptance, enduring change, making adjustments, following the lead of nature, adapt and respond. Seek to understand something at the core of your being first, and then you'll be able to take the actions that are required of you rather than, trying to paddle upstream. Trust your instincts and your intuition. They say to cultivate things like broad-mindedness, okay, open-mindedness, broad-mindedness, generosity, devotion, endurance, and receptiveness. A lot of times we miss out on the right opportune moment, the kairos moment that they talk about in Taurus II, because we're not open to it, because we're closed-minded, and we say, no, universe, you have to provide for me in this way. This is my vision, and it's going to happen this way. And I think that the people that find success in life are definitely have a goal in mind, but when they have instincts too. If we go back to my favorite thing, the NFL draft here, you can be the biggest, burliest, fastest dude on a defense. But if you don't have good instincts, if you don't have a gut feeling as to where that runner is going to run to or where the quarterback is going to throw the ball, and you can't react, okay, in time, you're not going to make the play. Okay, so it's about being able to pivot when when you understand what is required of you. That takes being open. That takes being receptive. That takes being like the soft earth, not like the hard mountain, the soft earth that we can plant the seed in, that is receptive to the seed. The seed is the kairos moment. You have to become like that soft earth that is willing to receive that seed. Okay. And the soft earth isn't saying, oh, no, I want a tomato. Oh, no, I have to have a zucchini or I'm not going to grow anything. No, the earth is like, give me whatever seed you got and I'll help you grow, I'll help you grow it. Okay. So have an idea of where you're going, but don't get fixated on only one way. And I think that is going to really help you through the sun's journey through Taurus II. And again, this is a phase of the lunar cycle where we're going to be releasing and distributing our goods and our ideas out into the world and getting ready for a new moon that's going to happen roughly the day after the sun moves into the third decan of Taurus. Okay, so we see on May 11th here, at the end of the cycle, we're going to have a new moon on May 11th. Okay, so that's really what we're leading up to is a new generative moon. Okay, where we're able to, maybe bring some things into fruition or begin that process of really getting down to business. All right, folks, I think that's what I've got for you today. I appreciate you being with me here today. I appreciate you as a community. Thank you for all the support that you've been reaching out and helping me get through some emotional times here. Thanks for showing up at the live streams. I do those roughly every full and new moon. I'm putting together potentially some Zoom Q&A type of things for the community to participate in here. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Maybe a monthly type of Q&A where we can get together in Zoom and talk about things. And like I said, if you're enjoying this channel, hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. Share the channel with your friends. Spread the word. That's the way that you can help me out, is sharing these things. Is if you think that you're getting some value from it, word of mouth is really the best way that you can support as well. And if you want to reach out for a reading too, the books are open right now. I'm really enjoying meeting up with clients and helping them work through some of these changes and things of that nature. So there's a book now link on the video and on my website as well. So check it out. If you need a different time than what's on there, I'd be more than willing to work with you. I also offer astrological tutoring. I love teaching and I love helping the people come to awareness not only of their own chart, but being able to help others. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And of course, if you want to make a donation to the work that I'm doing, I always appreciate it. Buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com. Imagine we're at the coffee shop, shooting the breeze and talking a little astrology and having a good connection in that way. So that's what I've got for you today. Again, as always, try to be kind to one another. Things work a lot better if you're nice, and be kind to yourself. In Taurus season, that is one of the I think the best things that you could do. Value yourself. Have a balanced viewpoint of what's going on, and don't beat yourself up. You're doing the best that you can, and that's really going to be the starting point to creating abundance and prosperity in your world, is that self-worth. All right, everyone, that's what I've got. I'll talk to you the next time. Take care. Peace.